Members of the Alliance that we're talking on behalf of span the industry, a cross-industry alliance that's come together, first of all, from a coalition of the willing on the brand side, as you can see there, to include platforms, Google and Meta here today, this afternoon, trade bodies, EGTA, representing the European broadcasters, EARCA, the WFA for global advertisers, and ISBA and Union des Marques as representatives of markets that would create local prototypes and pilots. And then we have strong partnership both with solution providers like Extreme Reach, but also those who represent those with disabilities. So the Royal National Institute for the Blind, the Royal National Institute for the Deaf, and the Valuable 500. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to Hannah Mirza from the Responsible Marketing Agency, who's going to introduce the panel and the case studies. And then we'll have some Q&A after that. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Lovely to be here, and I'm really excited to share this showcase with you. We've got 5 amazing companies here today who are all going to share with you some of the amazing accessible work they're doing. First off, we're going to hear from Taide from P&G. She is the Vice President of brand in Europe and has really been part of the instrumental driving force behind the work that's happening. And I'm going to hand over to Taide to take you through her showcase.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much for coming. Because if you're here, it means you care. So yes, this is P&G. This is Taide. So I'll tell you a little bit about our story behind accessible advertising. It all starts with a business reason. We are in the business of building brands, and we're in the business of growing markets. That's what P&G does, and we do this with fantastic products, packaging, communication, distribution. And in order for us to grow the markets, we need to reach 100% of all consumers, right? It's obvious. So in order for us to reach 100% of consumers, we need to be able to reach also those that have difficulty in understanding, those with visual and hearing impairments. And you just heard from Phil, this is about 15% of the population. So if you were now a person with viewing impairments, this is what you would experience and what you would see advertising. Any guess what that brand was? No idea, right? So one of the ways that we are able to make our advertising understandable for people with viewing impairments is by doing what we call audio description. That's what Phil was referring to yesterday, just before. And the way to do it is basically by describing, as it says, by describing what is happening as if you were seeing the advertising yourself. So let me show you what audio description looks like.
A tiny baby sleeps peacefully, with a drip attached to her eyes open narrowly. A nurse talks to the mother as the father leans anxiously on an incubator looking at the baby. A Pampers premature napping is put on the baby. Every day is a fight when you arrive early. And we're proud to be in your corner. The premature baby is driven home fit and well. The only premature nappy donated to hospitals, Pampers.
So this is what an audio described looks like, and that's what we're talking about. When we talk about accessible advertising, we talk audio description added to our advertising, as well as open and closed captioning. By the way, I should mention this is something that we have done surveys with, people that the target that we're talking about, and they have told us they want this. Strangely enough, they want advertising because not only it allows them to do better choices on the products they buy, but actually makes them feel included. So we in P&G have set an ambition to drive 100% of accessible advertising, and that's a recommendation for all of you who are in that journey, because you get what you measure. So we were able with Extreme Reach to basically track all of the advertising with a percentage, and I hold my teams accountable to deliver that 100% target. This has not been an easy task because there's a big lack of awareness, and this is one of the reasons why we're here today. Many advertisers, they have no clue that this is possible, and this is extra 15% reach with very minimal cost. So lack of awareness has been one of the barriers. Then when you go to the publishers and you say you want to do audio description, not all of them are equipped, so there's lack of tech to enable that. And they tell us, yeah, but it's only P&G that is asking for it. Now it's not only P&G. We have some friends here and would like to bring in more friends, as you saw through the Accessibility Alliance, so that we're able to make this a systemic change, like the way how we do advertising in the market. That's a little bit about our story. And without further ado, I'm going to pass on the word to...
Yeah, and we're going to ask the questions as we go so we can be more efficient with the mic, I think. So P&G's been at the forefront of driving the Accessibility Alliance and the work that's happening, and you're doing so much. What are some of the key learnings that you can share for others in the audience to take away?
First, this is low-hanging fruit. You just have to set your mind to do it. This is not solving for the world's problems or the global warming. It is really within your reach. So with a minimum amount of dedication and leadership, you can make this happen. This is one of the lessons. This actually needs to be adapted to your current organization. So you know better, if you're an advertiser, you know better how to move around. If you're a publisher, you know better how to move around to push the buttons, because this is something no one has asked before, at least in my experience. And we've had some of our colleagues kind of saying, yeah, but I don't know where to start because my organization, who touches this advertising where is very peculiar. There's not a one-size-fits-all. So we're going to talk more about that. And then third, I would say it has been so amazing to see the great welcoming from every person that we talk to. It's so easy to bring in people that actually want to drive the change and make a difference. It makes me really proud and hopeful of the industry that we play in. Yeah.
Great. We'll hand over to Isabel Massey, Global Head of Media, to showcase the work that's been happening at Diageo.
Hi everyone. Thank you very much. And so, Taide, every time she speaks on this topic, I find it so inspirational, and I hope it really drove this emotional connection with this topic on here. And so at Diageo, hopefully many of you know, we're the home of such brands as Johnnie Walker and Guinness, and we're very proud of the fact that, over years we've been shattering stereotypes and really celebrating diversity in our advertising. And so when it comes to thinking about people who are living with disabilities, this area is no different. But I think it is an area that certainly I found when I first started daunting to get going. So I wanted to share with you some of the tips that I've learned along the way of the last 12 months in particular. And hopefully it'll enable everyone who is at the start of their journey to have a fast start. So the first learning, when I started thinking about how we were going to convert our content, I thought this is going to be expensive. And I can tell you that it's not. Actually, if you think about the types of accessibility feature that Taide's just talked about, so closed captions, audio descriptions, something as simple as subtitles, we're talking about across all brands in Diageo, hundreds of pounds, not thousands of pounds, to convert our content. So it really is expensive to do. And the features are there, and it's great to have the platforms with us today here, because actually what makes it inexpensive is the fact that the platforms now have ready solutions for us to be able to adopt. But there's always a but, and the but is it needs some pre-planning. So I think this for me is one of the biggest learnings, is that it's thinking about how we can make the content accessible from the start by design, rather than doing it near the end of the process. And I'll explain why, and there are two main reasons for this. So the first one is one that I'll show you a video on for Gordon's. So when it comes to doing audio descriptions, as Taide showed you, there needs to be enough breaks in the content, particularly voiceovers or big things happening in advertising, in order for that audio description to be able to be input into that piece of content. So I'm going to play you this piece of content that we're very proud of, that performs incredibly well for us, for Gordon's Gin, but it's one of the ones that we weren't able to convert at the end, and you'll see why based on what I just said.
There are many evenings, many little catch-ups, many gatherings, many friends, many juicy conversations, many dinners, homemade or close enough, many delicious moments. But there's only one Gordon's, shall we?
So a lot going on in that. I think if you were asked to describe what was going on, you wouldn't be able to fit it in across the voiceover, but B, also the change of scenes, but it's very, very hard to do. So as we're thinking about our content going forward, that's something that we're addressing. And then the second, and this is very specific to the alcohol industry, but I'm sure many of you come from regulated industries. Actually, every time that we put out content, especially on TV, it needs to go for approval, and that requires us to pay for that piece of copy to be approved. Any change to that copy, it needs to go back for reapproval. So that means that you'd be spending a couple of £1,000s to get that reapproved. So getting it done once from the start becomes really, really important, because those costs can add up. So I'd say always think about pre-planning on this, because it means that actually you can do it for very, very small amounts of money. And then the second is, I think that, again, conception from people is, will the accessibility features affect the creativity in the advertising? Will it affect the performance? It absolutely won't, and that's been a theme that we've heard loud and clear from all members of the Accessibility Alliance. It definitely won't. But actually, rather than thinking about it as a burden, think about it as a means of more creativity. And so for us on Baileys, we took on that challenge, and we were so excited to work with the team over at Meta, and to think about how you could turn screen readers, which many of you might have experienced on Meta. So it's taking the content and it gets read out what's on screen. Something that is brilliant, and people within the disabled community have said it's a great feature, but it sounds very robotic. So we wanted to make sure that the content sounded as good as it looked for people, and so we did that on Baileys. And if you're interested in seeing the content, I can share that with you afterwards. The third learning, and you've heard this when I talked about Baileys, we engage people in the community that we're speaking to time and time again. So both accessibility experts as well as people within broader charities and influencers as well. And every single time we've been speaking to people who have been delighted to share their experience and to offer us advice. So please, I ask everyone to really think about who you're engaging and get them involved as early as possible, particularly at the start of your journey. You'll find people to be most welcoming to share their views. And one final thing from me. I think it's been brilliant to talk about accessibility when it comes to advertising content, but the world is much bigger than advertising content. So as we're thinking about our big sponsorships, our big partnerships, so for example, Guinness and the Six Nations, and now a recent announcement is Guinness and the English Premier League, we are thinking about how we can make that experience accessible for all. So we started by thinking about how we can make stadiums accessible, and then through our partnership with ITV, which is a broadcaster in the UK, what we did is we ran the first live audio description sports event, and it's something that they're now rolling out across the Euros. So really pushing them to go after audio descriptions and accessibility features faster. So my call to action is, honestly, advertisers' voices are strong in this. Get people to do things that were on their roadmaps sooner. There's a real desire with advertiser backing to go after this. And so that's it from me. I hope my tips have been helpful for everyone.
Thanks, Isabel. A question for you. With the campaigns, obviously you've been really authentic in bringing the audiences in, and then how have you helped the programs like the Six Nations be authentic in how they've made their commercial distribution of their programs accessible as well?
And I'll take the question more broadly, because I think thinking about the accessibility of those partnerships in general, we really want to think about how we can make those events as inclusive as possible. So starting with what we're thinking about when it comes to alcohol, and we want to make sure that non-alcoholic Guinness 0.0 is equally as available as the alcoholic version. And that doesn't just mean it being there on the bar, it means literally being in the same place, the same prominence of the font, being poured as the alcoholic version. And I think that's incredibly important to start with inclusion in that way, and then to build out from there. So thinking about quiet zones at matches, thinking about how you can train up staff who are at the stadiums as well. So it starts in that in-stadium experience that then passes on to the fans, and then also then working as you think about the broadcast and the media around that, it becomes a natural fit. So that's the way that we've been thinking about it with our big partnerships and sponsorships.
Great, thanks, Lizzie. I'm handing over to Christy Cooper now from from Meta, the Global Director of Industry Relations, to hear more about what they're doing on their platform to support accessibility.
Share a little video with you first.
Beautifully crafted ads, sharp Facebook posts, stylish Instagram stories. People put a lot into them, but sometimes not enough thought into who's consuming them, or specifically, who isn't able to. Let's look at who's on the other side. Kwame is partially sighted, so can't make out that picture. Jenny is hard of hearing, so she can't hear this voiceover. Lee has lost most of her vision, so she can't see what's happening. But it's not just Kwame, Jenny and Lee who rely on assistive technology. Globally, there are over 1.2 billion people living with a disability, and ignoring 20% of the market is simply not good for business. That's why we're making it easy to grasp this opportunity. With tools like image alt text that describe images to the visually impaired,
a pair of Dove sneakers hangs from an orange wall,
video captions for those who have difficulty hearing, audio description that details important action to those who are blind or partially sighted.
In the following scene, a sleek purple car transforms into metallic foil.
And if brands, agencies, tech platforms and trade associations all work together, we can make things even easier to make brand content accessible for all. Not because it's a nice thing to do, but because it's the right thing to do.
Awesome. So what I love about some of the examples that you've heard about already today is that I have to give a lot of credit to the progress that we've made as a platform to our advertisers. And I know Taide, especially with P&G, these are relatively new functions for us and features for us. And so it's pretty awesome when we're able to collaborate closely with our advertisers that come to us and say, you're missing the mark here and you need to do a little bit better. And so we worked really closely initially with P&G. They came in and sat down with our product teams and helped us to start to develop a product roadmap. And over time, we've been able to bring on other advertisers to start to leverage some of this functionality. And it's interesting, what we found is for some of these features, video captions is actually a really interesting one, because 1 in 5 people watch news, stories and reels without sound on. So that's 20% of our audience that actually benefits from an experience with video caption. And then we found that that extends view duration by 12%. So you start to see, by creating some of these features, you're going to find even more expansive ways that it's going to help drive different types of behavior that we know lead to better marketing outcomes. I think for us, it's really about continuing to stay close with our advertisers and really starting to drive more adoption of these features. I think we're pretty early on the journey, and so forums like this, partnerships like the Accessibility Alliance, to help us be able to share more and bring more people along with us.
Christy, these are amazing features that Meta's put in place, and I'm sure the consumers are incredibly grateful for them. How are you driving greater adoption amongst advertisers in their use?
Yeah, so I think for these tools specifically, it's really designed to enable advertisers to make accessible content more easily. And so it starts with kind of removing some of that advertiser friction, even just driving education that they're available. I think a lot of advertisers don't know that they're available and they're things that you can turn on. We've got a program that we launched called Accessibility School, which is for agencies and advertisers, and it's a place where we can work with our creative shop and help take brands and agencies on the journey on how to create content that's more accessible. And then I do think innovation is going to play a huge role in this, because AI is really going to be what removes a lot of the barriers and the friction to adoption. So as you start to get to functionality where it's automatically creating text from your voiceover and different things, so it's, I think to your point, it's not more expensive to make that additional ad, and you really remove some of that friction, will be a big part of helping to drive adoption.
Right. And we're going to move on to Google now. So we've got Adrienne from Google. I don't know where the clicker is gone. Oh, you've got the clicker? Great. Adrienne Hayes, VP of Marketing Devices and Services at Google. Over to you.
Great. Thank you for having me. So if you don't know, our mission at Google is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible to everyone. Thank you for that, so everyone can hear. And we strive to deliver on that promise every day through our products, our features, and our marketing. And that includes creating products and features and telling stories with and for people with disabilities. And I know the hot topic this week in a lot of forums is AI, and all of our hopes and fears that come with AI. And so I wanted to focus on one of the more positive impacts that AI is having in our world, and that's really revolutionizing how people with disabilities engage with the world around them. Whether that's making captions available on, like we saw today, on more online content, or having people use their phones. People maybe with low vision or who are vision impaired use their phones to interact with the world around them. And this last topic was actually the source of our Super Bowl ad this year for Google. It focused on a feature we created in Pixel called Guided Frame that helps people that are blind or have low vision get the most out of their phone experience. So I'm gonna play the spots, and then I can talk a little bit more about it. Yeah, exactly. Click through when earlier. Video there? Oh gosh, that's a big bummer. Yes, we go to YouTube. The live captions will be on. Well, that's unfortunate. So let me describe it. I guess I'll do the voiceover in real time. I have a real-time example of doing a semi-accurate voiceover of an ad. But essentially, it follows the journey of a vision-impaired man who is, first having a dating experience, and the feature on the phone actually visually and through haptics, verbally and through haptics, help people get in the frame so they can take a selfie. And it actually verbally describes to the user what the phone is seeing. So it might say one person in frame, and then it might say two people in frame. It might say one person and one animal in frame, because he takes a really cute picture of him and his dog. Go on and on. So he's dating in the storyline, and then in the very last, very poignant, tear-jerking moment at the end, which I hope you all go and watch the spot. It says 3 people in frame, and it's him and his wife in the delivery room with their new baby. So it's very sweet, and it was, there was a lot of debate internally as to if we were why we would focus on something that maybe only appealed to very few on such a massive advertising stage. And we have these debates a lot, and I think there's a healthy tension in a lot of marketing orgs around focusing on message for the masses or focusing on messages for the few. And what we found is that when you focus on the messages for the few, it actually appeals to a lot more people than you would imagine. Everyone has some experience of feeling different in some way, shape, or form to some extent in their life. And so when you choose to include versus exclude, it actually has pretty big mass appeal for people who might be resonating with, a difference or an otherness on a different dimension in their lives. So I think it's a really important takeaway and a really important insight to use when you're having these internal conversations. Again, which we had lots of on a stage like the Super Bowl. So beyond the Super Bowl viewership of the spot itself, which is probably in the tens of millions, the ad has garnered about 50 million views online alone in addition to that, which again I think just speaks to the mass appeal of carrying these very inclusive messages that can again resonate with people on a bunch of different dimensions. And inclusion goes beyond just what's in front of the camera. There's obviously the work that we do with our product teams to make sure that the features are in the products. Whether that's an ad platform or in our case devices and services. But it also extends to what's behind the camera. So we actually worked with a blind filmmaker who helped us develop and shoot this ad, and he actually had the ingenious idea of covering the lens in petroleum jelly to actually give the viewer the experience that blind and low vision people have outside in the world, and it really resonated in this case. So this is just one example of some of the work we're doing across the company in terms of applying AI to accessibility. We're also doing a lot in speech and language. It's another really important area for us. Things like, 70% of Gen Z adult Americans watch videos on YouTube with captions on. 70% have captions on. So having, live captions, on our devices, our Android phones is really important. Another great one is live transcribe, which actually takes speech. So when we could be talking and transcribes in real time on your phone. So if you're hearing impaired, you know exactly what's being said around you on the device. So again, those are just a couple of the ways that we're thinking about inclusivity in ways, again, in big stages, small stages, behind and front of the camera to help make a difference.
And I implore you to search for and Google Pixel 8 Super Bowl commercial, because it is a real, it's incredibly emotive, and you won't be disappointed.
I know, I'm sorry we missed it. I wanted to add one more thing. We have many insights and learnings across the company, and we've actually accumulated them on a site that's available to everyone, so that everyone, we really want to inspire and encourage people to make more stories that are, positive, inclusive, authentic. And so anyone can go to google.com/all-in, and you can, there's a lot of resources there that you can get access to.
Great. And as a marketer, it's clear you're really passionate about inclusion. Where did the inspiration for that particular campaign come from?
Well, we actually wanted to follow up on our 2022 Super Bowl ad, which was around another feature called Real Tone. And Real Tone was actually created because we saw a lack of authentic representation of skin tones, especially for people of color, in photography. It was actually quite a well-known sort of secret in the industry to all types of photography, going back, well before digital photography, but it extended into digital photography. And so we created a feature in our Pixel phones a couple years ago to correct that. And we talked about that in our 2022 campaign. And it was really successful. And so we knew that, these types of stories, again, that might not be for the masses, might not be for the majority, but our focus on the minority do resonate with more people than you might expect. So that's what inspired us to look for another feature, kind of that, we try to find features that have the greatest impact on people, and those people might not be the majority of our users. But those are the stories that we try to tell from a marketing team perspective at Google.
And because you work on the hardware side as well, you have access to know those features are being utilized. Are you using insights from your consumer base to inform the work you're doing?
Yeah, in the case of Javier and Frame, even if you're not blind or low vision, Gen Z and millennials use their front camera more than their back camera, and one can assume that's to mostly take selfies and videos of themselves. And so we knew that, again, that could apply to anyone. And there was obviously a group of people out there that were low vision and impaired vision that were probably having a pretty bad experience with their front-facing camera, trying to take their own selfies or just trying to take their own pictures. And so that's what inspired us to do the work on the product feature, and then ultimately see it as an opportunity to tell the story more broadly.
Thank you, Adrienne. Our last panelist is Kathryn Swallow, Global Brand Vice President at Unilever.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a tough one to come last after all this. You've stolen all my messages. Can you hear me? No, I mean, to start, I think it's amazing to hear all the stories, and also to realize it's this forums like this that really do raise the awareness. But I think even sharing together, because some learnings kind of will mutually benefit each other. And also a lot resonate, the power of partnerships. For example, the example on Guinness you were just using. I think there's some ways we can drive change beyond our own brands and the own ecosystems that we have. Thank you. Okay. So today, this is really the few slides I want to share with you is very much focused more on advertising production and what we've been doing at Unilever to really enable this to get to a more accessible space. I will say I think we're at the beginning of a journey and with a lot more to go. But I'll start from a real sort of belief that we've got in the business. And I mean, I'll just read here the quote, which is that if equity, diversity and inclusion are to become the heart of everything Unilever does, it's essential that our voice isn't just representing these people, but it's crucially that it reaches all consumers. So it's not just something we talk about, but that we're able to reach consumers with what we're doing. And we've been on a journey to really try to drive this agenda to ensure that all the work we do on the brands engages with the communities, but goes a step further. It's not just engagement, it's to ensure that everyone is starting on an equal playing ground. And I think that's the real benefit of what we do. Everyone should have the experiences that are equal to each other. And actually, even if you go a step further, and we've talked about this benefits a wider population. There's plenty of data flying around. 80% of people that do use captions don't have a hearing impediment. So it's a sort of no-brainer of a strategy, but it also, this idea of really deeply understanding groups of consumers can benefit them all. So I'm going to play a film in a second that just is one of many of our brands that we're really trying to step up on this and we're really starting to try to make this a sort of mandatory push to have the closed captions and the audio descriptions in the communication, so again, that everyone can benefit and really be included in our brands.
A woman uses Sure Non-Stop.
Use Sure Non-Stop protection is body heat activated.
Wearing a prosthetic leg, she runs up a long outdoor staircase alongside other people.
So no matter how hot you get,
she's out of breath.
Sure keeps working against odour and sweat.
She receives
72-hour non-stop protection, activated by your body heat.
And I think the journey that this particular piece of work, and there's plenty of others on other brands, really stems from a collaboration with our advertising production team in Unilever, but with the creative agencies and so on and so forth. And frankly, it's as important behind the camera as in front of the camera, and something we can touch on in a second. But now let me sort of talk a little bit about the journey Unilever's on and where we are in the process. And it's been something that we've been driving for a long time through the Unstereotype agenda. And that set out a number of years ago to really drive the agenda of ensuring true representation in all the work, and also to eradicate any harmful stereotypes that existed. And that's well underway, and truly, I'd say, largely all our brands are really kind of walking the talk on that. But Access Services really set out to step it up a notch, to say how can we really leap forward in what we do across all the portfolio, but with the sort of drive of how can we try to influence the wider industry collectively with partners and so on and so forth. And there's three ways that really we see that we've made some progress. But before touching on those three ways, I would say that we've learned a lot in the process, and a few things that kind of we're certainly learning is how to get all brands to really opt in. And that's a challenge, obviously, to inside a company the size of Unilever, to get this as something that's frankly mandatory on the brands for people to pull their hearts as well as their mind. Also to how we scale these agendas so that it doesn't become a niche activity on a brand, but it's scaled globally. And also how we work with both our agency partners and broadcasters and platforms and so on and so forth. But there's 3 ways I'd say that we've made some big progress in the last few years, and again, I do truly believe we're at the beginning of the journey. The first is on the senior leadership accessibility commitment. So in terms of truly embracing accessibility and access services, you need to enable, you need to agree to be part of it. And we've made a big statement within the Unilever community that now you have to opt out, not opt in. And so this, I think, is a big mindset shift. A shift to say this isn't just a nice add-on, please do it. It's a shift to say this is integral in everything we do. And that's made a big step change and is starting to be felt across the whole business and across all of the brands. The second one is the development of the Access Service Playbook. And that is something that, you know, as one of the biggest global advertisers, along with many others here, we've got a responsibility to drive this agenda, but also to educate ourselves. And so a lot of work went into this to really upskill ourselves, and that doesn't stop. It keeps changing. Platforms keep evolving, we need to keep learning. But this was something we then released to the wider industry, agency partners and so on. And in addition to that, we put in place our global pilot, which is essentially to ensure that the content we create has the audio descriptions and the closed captions and so on. And we put the pilot in place with all of our brands in the US, UK, Brazil and Australia. And with the ambition ultimately of getting to the 100%. This was a pilot and we said we expect 50%. We got 83%. So straight away, even in a pilot, we've seen actually there's a pull from our brand teams and we can really make this difference. And last and certainly not least is driving innovation. And the latest partnership we have right now, which is with Microsoft and WPP, is to really leverage the power of AI to step up the engagement that we can bring in the content when we talk about inclusivity. The video will do a better job of explaining it than I can.
WPP London, Matthew Stewart.
The tool that I've made is an application that allows you to upload videos, and on the other end with GPT-4 with Vision and as your AI services, you get your video back with spoken narrations over the top.
On a computer, kitchen scene with Kat and Hellman's mayonnaise.
This makes audio descriptions cheaper and faster. Our goal is to be able to offer this product as a service for all of our advertising campaigns.
And I think, you know, that's it. I'd sort of probably just close in saying, like all of us here, I think we're all on this shared mission, if you like, to make inclusivity commonplace, but also holistic. And this kind of talks about advertising production, but I think it's so critical. We look at the full suite of the touch points of our brands, and I think there's plenty more we'd all agree that we have to do.
Thanks, Kath. Just one question for you, and then I'll hand to Phil. So, in addition to accessible advertising, what else has Unilever done for disability inclusion more broadly as a company?
I mean, there's plenty of examples and case studies, and I'd probably start by how I closed the last section by saying I think we're trying to drive this agenda of being truly holistic across all the touch points, but also starting from our teams. So until we build a culture internally that this is important, this matters, frankly, these are going to stay as little projects on the side. So I think the first thing is really driving that cultural change. It started with the Unstereotype initiative internally. That would be the first thing. Secondly, to really build more partnerships. So really partners within the environment with different, from NGOs to partnerships to alliances, to sort of ensure we've got the right insights inside and to be able to collaborate and co-create. And then when it comes to communication and innovation, from a communication point of view, I think you've seen the elements we're doing, but we've also launched the Inclusive Set initiative. And now we've piloted on brands like my own, Rexona, Dove, Omo, Signal. We're now bringing this inclusivity behind the set. And so with people with disabilities, we've just closed, I think it's 135 mentees on 150 shoots. And really to try and drive this, you know, to bring this representation. And when it comes to innovation, I think that journey is a tough one. We're doing a lot when it comes to accessible QR codes, And we've now got those across about 700 of our products, reaching, I think it's something like 500 million products. But again, it's a journey. And so I'd say we're definitely on it. I think the culture's there to drive it, and plenty more to do.
Wonderful. What an amazing set of panelists. I mean, a hand to fill.
Thank you. And it's rare to have where when you start, there's more panel than there is audience. But I'm glad to see that the numbers have grown. We've clearly got a long way to go when it comes to driving awareness, and I hope we've influenced even a small number of people here today. As you've heard also, there's massive systemic change that needs to happen, and even in organizations that are aligned and well organized, culture needs to shift and people need to work to new processes and workflows. So there's a lot that the Alliance needs to do to take the great work that some of its members have done to translate that into industry tools that can be used more broadly, bottling the best practice so that other people can use it, creating the playbooks, creating the guides that others can use and pick up, and also driving the industry itself to make the technical advances that are going to make this much easier and more seamless to pick up and use from the point of view of an advertiser once they get themselves on the journey. And the last thing that we also need to do is to be accountable and to measure our progress, and that's what we'll also be doing in the months ahead. So I don't know whether we've got any time for maybe one or two questions, if there are any, and if yes, please.
Hello everyone, and thank you panelists. Can you hear me okay? I know it's not the best sound. Thank you, I really enjoyed that. It was really insightful. My name's Shannon, I'm from Social Disruption, and we're a consultancy helping brands shape more purposeful, culturally rich and diverse communications. We also represent really amazing talent, over 50% who have disabilities, and they champion really amazing purposeful causes. So I'd love to kind of like talk to you all and partner with you, because I think the work you're doing is amazing, and it sounds like it's driven by partnerships. So that's one element. And then throughout the 2 days I've been here so far, a lot of conversations have involved AI. And for creators with disabilities, there is often, I think often brands, there's a lot of conversation around AI, but I don't think it's trickling down to the creators. A lot of people just know AI as ChatGPT. So I'd love to know from your end, perhaps what are some takeaways I can share with creators with disabilities of how they can use AI?
Thank you. Any panelists want to take that one in particular? Christy.
I don't know if it's 1000% what you're looking for, but one of the things that I'm really excited about, so I'm wearing a pair of our Meta Ray-Ban glasses today, and when we start to think about the AI that's embedded in glasses like these, and you think about some of the multimodal languages that are going to be available and the functionality that's going to be very life-changing for all of us as humans, but also for people with sight, impairments to be able to read different signs or translate signs. I think you're going to see quite a rapid evolution of how the hardware and the generative AI are going to play together in a way that's going to be just new fertile ground for telling cool stories as creators and portraying those experiences. So that's one thought I had.
I'll build on that. And I think you have to imagine the future a little bit, and this idea of multimodal, and using your voice to have, an agent, an artificial intelligence do something for you. It could draw something for you. It could create a song for you. So imagine whether, you could have a lot of different disabilities, but now using your voice, if that's available to you, to command something and do things, I think is going to be really, really breakthrough for people with disabilities. I mean, right now, we use voice to ask questions. Certainly in our world, knowledge and information. How tall is the Empire State Building? What's the weather in Cannes? But imagine they're going to get so much more powerful and assistive and be able to do things for you. And I think for creators, the creative output of that is going to be amazing and incredible. I'm excited. I could be a creator now, maybe, with someone else doing the actual output for me.
Thank you. I think we're at time, so I'm going to call it there. If anybody wants to get hold of any more resources, first of all, we need to make sure that we see the YouTube video that we talked about.
Javier in frame.
And there is more material available on the ISBA website, that isba.org.uk, not the School Bursars Association. That's not us. a guide that we published last year with our partners Flock called Reframe, which gets people on the journey. But to be honest, there's nothing that stops anybody in the audience starting to ask questions of their partners, starting to build the case, starting to understand what needs to be done, what's standing in the way, and to drive this one forward. So every little bit of awareness, if I can borrow somebody else's line, helps. Thank you very much indeed for coming.